Good morning and welcome to Facebook Live with the Community Health team. I'm Alison Connor, I'm a community health worker with the team.
I'm Rhea, I'm also a community health worker.
And today we're going to talk to you about stress and how to deal with it. Now we're going to cover stress, go over quite a few things about stress, but at any point that you want to know more about the subject of stress, anxiety or depression, please let us know, because Rhea and I will do a more in-depth session later on in the weeks to come. So what we're going to do first of all is think about stress. Now stress can affect anyone, and stress, it doesn't just make you feel bad, it can also be really bad for your health in general. But you know, the good news is that there are steps that you can take to deal with it. So I'm going to talk about ways in which you can start to deal with stress and how you can try to stop it building up in the future. And research has shown that small steps, just a couple of small steps, can help to deal with stress. Okay? So first of all, let's think to ourselves, how are you feeling today? So have a wee think. Are you feeling happy, a bit sad, a bit tired, you're okay? Let's just think about how you're feeling. Okay? So the first step to managing stress is to realise when things are getting a bit on top of you. So recognising a problem is a really good sign, because you're recognising something's not quite right. So problems, they can build up, and it's really important to deal with your problems as they arrive, okay? Now there's a lot of things that can cause stress. Can you think of anything that causes you stress? Well, I'll give you a couple of things. Rhea and I will maybe think of something. I could think about, could it be money worries?
When I'm running late for something, I get really stressed out.
There's another stress.
Happens a lot.
Yeah, it can happen a lot, traffic and everything. Unemployment, problems at home. What about children?
Yeah, relationships.
Yeah, bad experiences in the past, maybe bullying, discrimination, those kind of things. There's lots and lots of reasons that can make you feel a bit stressed. So we've got to think about, why do we feel like this? What gets us stressed? Why do we feel so stressed? Now your bodies, they usually cope quite well with short-term pressures, but too much stress for too long can make you unwell. That's why it's really important to ask for help. So as soon as you feel stressed or things are getting on top of you, just say, I'm not really coping too well at the moment, or could you help me with this? Most people can find to get up and go, they need to deal with the crisis. But what if that crisis doesn't go away? You can be so busy dealing with problems that you don't notice that you're stressed, and your bodies have got to keep coping in the same way time after time. So, what are the signs of stress? What about sleep? Do you find sometimes you're not sleeping very well, and you're maybe feeling a little bit tired during the day? Are you eating more comfort foods? Like some of the comfort foods, they'll be full of fat and sugar. Do you have less energy to take exercise? Do you feel that you're not motivated enough to get out and see people or do things? You're sitting about the house. Has your memory and your concentration gone? Now, when you're feeling stressed and you've got a lot of problems, sometimes your immune system can weaken. That'll increase your risk of getting coughs and colds. Maybe you'll have backache, sore head, stomach problems. These are all really common signs of long-term stress. Now, what we're going to do is talk about why ignoring stress, it doesn't work. You can't ignore stress, you have got to deal with it. So you've got to face up to your problems, and if you face up to your problems, it actually increases your confidence. If you deal with something, you'll feel a bit better after you've dealt with it, rather than just say, oh, that's not happening, and burying your head in the sand. So trying to avoid dealing with stress, it maybe seems like a good idea at the time, but it usually makes things worse. If a bill comes through the door and you pick it up and it's a brown letter and you think, this is not good news, if you put it in a drawer or put it in the bin, you've got rid of the letter, you've got rid of the information, but you have not got rid of the problem. So you really have to deal with it. You have to open it up, have a look at it, and there are people, there are organisations that can help with things if you are feeling under pressure because of debt. Now, some of the common ways of avoiding stress include trying to block out problems by using certain things, maybe drinking too much alcohol, as I said, ignoring your bills, spending too much money, or avoiding people. So, let's get started, okay? What can we do to reduce the stress in our lives? So one of the first things we're going to do, and I'm going to hand over to Rhea just in a minute, it's about eating well. So if you're stressed, it is more important than ever to eat well, and Rhea's going to explain to us why that is.
So a lot of the things that I'm going to mention, we have mentioned before, so it's not anything new. A lot of the things I'll mention you probably do know about already. So it's typical things like making sure that you stay hydrated, so make sure that you're drinking enough during the day. So we're really talking about water, making sure that you're not overloading on things like your caffeine. So a lot of people drink a lot of tea and coffee throughout the day. Making sure that you've got a good energy level throughout the day, an even energy level. So you want to make sure you're having regular meals. You don't want to be eating too many sugary foods, otherwise you'll send your blood sugar up and then it will come crashing down. And that's what can cause really quick mood changes. So it'll put your mood sort of out of sync if that's what you tend to snack on. So try and avoid your sweets, your cakes, sugary foods, that kind of thing. Try and eat really regularly, so smaller portions throughout the day rather than having maybe just 2 large meals. Making sure that you get breakfast, so we've spoken about that before, so you really need that burst of energy in the morning to start your day, and to make sure that your mood is kept on a nice even keel. I've mentioned caffeine, making sure that you get enough protein in your diet, so you'll get your protein from your meat, your fish, your pulses, your peas, your beans, your lentils if you're vegetarian. So it's really, really important because protein contains amino acids and your brain needs amino acids to be able to function properly and to regulate your moods as well. I'm also going to mention your omega-3s and 6s, which I've mentioned before. So you're getting that from things like your oily fish, from your cheese, from your milk, from your eggs, and that's a type of fat. Now usually we would say you want to lower your fat, but I've spoken before about making sure that you get the good fats, and that's what they are. They're classed as good fats. And again, it's all to do with making sure that your brain functioning is on point, and it helps with things like sleep as well. I am trying to think if I've missed anything out. I think that's everything I wanted to mention.
Okay,
is that okay?
Yeah, that's great, Rhea. Now, Rhea mentioned my favourite subject, water. And over the weeks, if you've been watching, you'll know that I've been going really hard at it to get you to increase your fluid intake. So please try and keep up with the water. And Rhea also mentioned sleep. Now, that's the next thing that I'm going to talk about. So that's worked out quite well there. So have you ever had any sleep problems, and why do you think that's been? Has it been that things are churning through your mind all night and you just can't switch off? But good sleep is absolutely essential to help you prepare and get through the next day. But the first thing to go usually when you are feeling really stressed is your sleep pattern. So some of the things, what can we do to get a better night's sleep? Well, I would think that, I know a lot of people like to have a TV in their room or maybe some computer games, but they're an absolute no-no when you're trying to have a good night's sleep, because you've got to take your bedroom as a place of relaxation and not have these things that stimulate your mind. I don't know if you're like me, but I like reading psychological thriller books, and I sometimes have to stop reading them because I get myself all worked up, turning page after page, wanting to know what's happening next. Now, if I'm wanting a good night's sleep, I have to leave my psychological thriller books to during the day, because it is absolutely not a good idea to be getting yourself all hyped up at night when you really want to have a good night's sleep. So you want your room to be as calm as possible. If your room's quite lighty and you're getting sunlight during the day coming in, you know, first thing in the morning, try and get blackout curtains. That might help keep it a little bit darker. Try and, if there's lots of noise, if you're on a busy road, you know, maybe get earplugs or something for short-term use. It would be important. And it's important that maybe you haven't had a good night's sleep, and during the day, the next day you think, you know what, I'm going to try and get an hour or two here, there. Try not to do that, because you want to encourage your body to get into a routine, and that routine will be trying to go to bed at the same time every night, trying to have a good routine, maybe thinking about, you know, not having tea and coffee, as Rhea stated, about 4 hours before you go to bed, and don't be having, you know, big heavy meals. So try and try and wind down and make sure that you're getting yourself into a nice relaxed state and ready for bed.
One thing I would maybe say as well is if you find that you're going through a phase where your mood is quite low and you're tending to stay indoors maybe a bit more, try not to spend lots of time in your bed when you're awake, because it really hinders you being able to get to sleep in that same bed, in that same room when it is time to sleep at night. So try and make sure that you're spending time in a different room doing something else rather than staying in bed, you know, when you're awake.
Right, so that was sleeping. And remember, Rhea and I can go over things in greater detail if you want any more information. We could do that in the following weeks. Get active. Now, Rhea and myself did a session. The very first Facebook Live session was all about getting out walking. Now, walking is absolutely brilliant for relieving stress and calming you down, getting out of the four walls that are closing in on you. So get out walking. The other things that you can do is get out with the children. And Rhea, because Rhea's got 2 children, she'll maybe want to say some of the things that can be done just now with children.
So we were just having a wee discussion earlier on about the types of things that we would usually do as a family, or if you've got children. And obviously people are a lot more restricted just now. You're restricted by where you can go and how many people you can have with you. And some places are actually closed as well. So what you would maybe do, usually you can't do. But even before all these restrictions, money would be a factor that parents would have to take into consideration as well. So if you've got quite a few children, taking them places can be quite expensive. So it's trying to find things that you can do that won't cost the earth or that you can do for free as well. So things like the local museums, if you can make use of things like that, local parks, green spaces, walking. And we were just saying just now, because it's Halloween soon, some of the kids have been going out and doing a little pumpkin spotting activity. So they've been going out and seeing how many pumpkins they can see, similar to what they were doing with the rainbows and things during lockdown. They've been doing a bit of that. The other thing that we've done, and you can do this inside or outside, is do a wee scavenger hunt. So if you give the kids a wee list of things that they have to find or collect and bring, that's a good way to get them active, but also to get their minds working as well, because they've got to think, well, where would I find these things and what do they look like? And then they can tick them off on the list. So it can be very basic things. If you're in the house, it can be something like, you know, a sock or something blue or something that begins with the letter R. You can completely make it up. And same when you're outside, you know, find a rock, find a leaf, you know, find a blue car. Could be anything at all. So wee scavenger hunts are quite nice to do as well. And it gets you talking about nature and the things that they can see when they're out on walks and things as well. So it's quite good. The other thing I had been thinking about was something along the lines of crafts or messy play. A lot of people, and myself included, I dread cleaning up after we've done messy play in the house. So if there's something that you can do outside that involves getting them in their wellies and old clothes, where you can do a bit of play with even mud or sand or water. The other thing you can do if you've got a tray in the house is use things like lentils. So just dry ingredients that you've maybe got in the store cupboard. Some cups, some spoons, a sieve, anything like that. Building things, so making use of things like Lego, or taking that outside, taking things to the park with you or out into the garden, and making sure you're still getting that fresh air, although you're maybe doing activities together at the same time.
The other thing to think about if you are employed at the moment, and it could be maybe your work that's causing you stress. It could be that you work in an office and you're in a building where there's not a lot of light, or you're working in a factory or an environment where you can't get out a lot. Please try and use the time you get off, you know, at lunchtime to get out and go for a walk, because getting away from that environment will certainly help for a while. Really, really important to get away from either the computer or noise or anything like that, just to try and relieve any stress. So what we're going to look at now, and there are a few unhealthy ways that we can deal with stress. So we can maybe think about things that we've used and people are using at the moment. So first of all, sometimes when people come home at night after a stressful day at work or a stressful day just in general, they maybe reach for alcohol. Now, many people will drink alcohol to relax and forget their problems, and it'll maybe combat their feeling of stress. However, the negative effects of alcohol, they're likely to increase your stress. So it's not the best thing to be using. So in the long run, drinking can reduce your mental well-being and contribute to your feelings of stress, anxiety and depression. It also increases your risk of developing a wide range of health problems. So alcohol in the short term might help you forget your problems for a while, but these problems haven't gone away because you've decided to have 4 or 5 glasses of wine. Those problems are still there. And Rhea, I think, is going to give us an up-to-date information about the units of alcohol.
Yeah, so a while back it used to be that the unit allowance for men and women was slightly different. So now it's exactly the same for men and women. It's 14 units a week. So if you think of that as 2 per day, and you're really looking to spread that out over at least 3 days or more. So you're talking 14 units would be 6 beers or 6 glasses of wine. A glass of wine, we're talking 175 mils, or it would be, I think it's 14 single shots of a spirit. So if you hear 14 units and you're not quite sure what that would look like in terms of your alcohol, that's what, if you imagine your 6 glasses of beer or wine or your 14 shots of a spirit. And as Alison says, it can actually have a detrimental effect on different aspects of your life. What will tend to happen is it can cause people to actually distance themselves from the people that they're living with, their loved ones, their friends, their family, when really they're maybe actually really needing to rely on them or to talk to them about whatever it is that's going on. And that in turn can lead to breakups and arguments, and it just has this kind of knock-on effect. It can contribute to your low mood even when you're maybe not having something to drink as well, because you've built up that kind of anger and all those negative feelings are still in there. So it's not good in the long run for your mental well-being. And what I will say as well is it's probably, if you're likely to rely on a coping mechanism, such as alcohol, you're less likely to look at other ways to cope as well. Other ways that could be a little bit more helpful and a bit more positive. So if that's a sort of an avenue you tend to go down, it does usually mean that you're less likely to try and find other ways to cope.
Yeah. Okay, the other unhealthy way, although a lot of people will dispute this, I've been feeling really stressed, I'm up to here and I can't cope anymore, I need to go and have a cigarette. Now a lot of people will swear by having a cigarette it helps to relax them, but actually it has the opposite effect on your body. It speeds up your heart rate, so it actually puts you under a bit more stress. And Rhea's just going to go into a little bit more about why that is.
Yeah, so when you're smoking, just as Alison says, what will happen is your heartbeat will increase, your blood pressure will increase, it'll send different kind of sort of signals through your brain that aren't good for your body either. You're also you're feeding your nicotine addiction as well there. So again, the minute you stop feeding that, you're going to want to do that again, which will increase your chances of having another cigarette later on. So really what it is that you're benefiting from when you're doing this, and we spoke about this earlier on, is that now you actually have to go outside to have a cigarette. So what you actually might tend to be doing is taking yourself out of the situation that is causing you stress at that point in time, which is a good thing. You're going outside, so you're getting some fresh air, which is a good thing. And your breathing will change when you're smoking as well. So it might actually mean that you're taking, although you're smoking, you're taking deeper breaths, your breathing will be more regulated as well. So they're all good things, but if you can do those things, and keep the cigarette out of it, then you'll definitely benefit a whole lot more. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. And the other thing about smoking that can cause you stress, if you're going to be buying a packet of cigarettes, now I'm a non-smoker myself, but I do know I hear people saying that, oh my goodness, it is so expensive to buy a packet of cigarettes now. Does anybody know how much they cost for a packet? 20?
I heard it was around £12, but I don't know if that's right. It's maybe less or more, I have no idea.
So we'll say £10 to £12 because none of us in the room are smokers, so I'm sorry if we've got this wrong to any smokers out there. But between £10 and £12, now if you're smoking 20 a day, It's frightening to think that you could be spending over £70, well over £70 a week, and that money can be going towards other things. And I know smoking is one of the most addictive things to do, but if you would like help to stop smoking, please get in touch with the community health team, and we'll do our best to put you in touch with people that can help you with smoking and stopping smoking. Right, so we're going to look at dealing with difficult situations. So everybody faces problems or difficult situations in their lives, and the problems can lead to stress. And sometimes there's problems and situations that are outside of our control. We can't do anything about it. And sometimes you've just got to accept that there's certain things that you just can't change. And stress can sometimes, if you're stressed, you maybe might not see the problem clearly. It's because you're so stressed, you're up to, you know, high do about it. I could think of an occasion I got stressed a couple of weeks ago. We were coming to do the Facebook Live session, and the usual room that we were in had been booked out to somebody else, and I was, oh my goodness, what we're going to do. And rather than dealing with it rationally by saying, okay, that room's not available for us anymore, what is available? And I got myself all stressed for nothing, because there was another room available all the time. So it's a case of just trying to take time out and think, okay, the room's booked out, there's nothing you can do about it, what's your alternative? So it happens to all of us. It's really important to try and think, here we go, try and think straight. So try and think straight. So if you're worrying about your problems all the time, you might start to expect the worst. You might start to become pessimistic about a lot of things. You might start to blow things out of proportion. Now I did last week, we've not got a room, I was on the phone to Robin, he's going, Alison, calm down, we've not got a room. So it's important to keep calm about things. Stress can twist your thoughts. If you can't think straight, it makes it difficult to do something positive and deal with your problems. Now what I want to do just now is talk to you about Mark Twain. Now as you know, Mark Twain's written a lot of books and, you know, productions, etc. Now he's got a famous quote that I really try and remember all the time in my life, but sometimes I forget it. But Mark Twain said, I've been through some really difficult, awful times in my life. I've had a lot of problems, and do you know what? Some of them actually happened. So that's maybe us thinking pessimistically about this might happen, that might happen, and a lot of the times that the situations that we think are going to happen don't actually happen. So we're maybe worrying needlessly about a lot of things. So it's important to try and think about things that are actually going to happen, not try and invent things that aren't. So here we go now. What can we do to try and avoid stressful situations? We can learn to say no. So it's easy to keep saying yes. Can you babysit? Yes. Can you go to the shops for me? Yes. Can you take my dog out for me? Yes. Do you think you could go shopping? Can you do that? Yes, yes, yes. You've got to look after yourself. I know it's difficult. If you're someone that likes to help people and you like to look after them and do things for them, and it makes you feel good doing things for them, but you have to look after yourself, so you have to learn a word sometimes, and that word is no. I can't do that. And you've got to look after yourself, and Rhea's going to give us some information about what you can do to look after yourself.
So we've spoken a little bit about making sure you get enough sleep. We've spoken a little bit about your diet and what you're eating. So it's very basic everyday things that we're talking about. We've spoken a little bit about getting out and exercising as well. The more exercise you can do, it means that you should get a better night's sleep as well. I've also got a few things noted down that I'd quite like to mention. So making time for yourself, which may or may not involve some kind of relaxation. So it could be something really, really simple. It could even be just sitting quietly and having some peace and quiet. It could be reading a book or a magazine. It could be trying a new recipe you want to try. It could be going for a walk. Just finding something that you like to do or enjoy, and you make sure that you are giving yourself that time and space to do that and not feeling guilty about it, because a lot of people, and I do it as well, you know, if you think that you can't justify that time for yourself, you don't do it. But as Alison says, if you're someone that likes to look after others, you're not able to do that if you aren't feeling right yourself. So making time for yourself, relaxation, and it also doesn't need to involve sitting still. If you want to do things like go out for a walk, You can be active and be relaxing at the same time, just a nice gentle walk if that's something that suits you better than staying inside, sitting down, doing something. So have a wee think about what you would actually like to do. Making use of green space, so getting out, it sounds a bit airy-fairy, but getting in touch with nature a little bit, and that might just be being in a park or a green space or up a hill somewhere. It doesn't need to be anything else. Listening to music that you enjoy, doing a bit of artwork if you think you're creative, checking what technology you've got on the go. So I was thinking about this last night, and I was thinking about, we're all more now than ever on social media. That's the way people connect. They're really relying on things like social media to get in touch, because we're not able to get in touch with people the way we usually would, which is great, but at the same time, someone's phone's going off.
Just ignore it.
Technology.
Yeah, that's the technology. That was a good thing that we mentioned technology, and there's the technology now.
But the downside to that is that being on social media all the time, being connected via technology all the time, can actually make you feel like you're really, really busy, and it can lead to feeling stressed. So even if you can just for an hour turn it off and get a break, just as you would if you were at work, you would take a break. So if you're feeling busy, if you were doing something in the house where you were really busy getting something organised or packing up boxes or anything like that, you would take a break, you would have a cup of tea or a glass of water or a snack. So make sure you're doing that with things like your phones and your laptops and emails and things like that as well. Your breathing, so if you find yourself getting stressed or anxious, you can do some breathing exercises. So if you breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, and if you count for 4 for each one, so in for 4 and out for 4, and just to get that sort of control back, because what will tend to happen is your breathing will speed up, and it'll probably be quite shallow rather than taking deep breaths. So it's getting those breaths really deep and making sure that they're even as well. If you find that the count for 4 isn't quite right for you, just find a number that suits you. You can increase that or decrease that, just as you feel suits you. Spoken about your sleep. I would say as well, if you really struggle with things like panic attacks or an anxiety attack of some kind, you can even look at things like grounding techniques or visualizations as well. So your grounding technique is about, it's mainly sensory, so it's about connecting to what is happening now, making sure that you're focusing on the present and not letting your mind go into overdrive and taking you other places. So it's all about physical things that you can do. And it sounds silly, but it's things like putting your hands in some water. If you are in the house, if you've got ice, touch something really cold like an ice cube, or so just sit with it in your hand. If you're able to take off your socks and shoes and actually walk somewhere barefoot, that really helps, because the sensation on the soles of your feet bring you back to where you are, and it's something for you to focus on as well. There's a technique that I can post up, so it's looking at things, if you find that you're out and about and you can't do any of these things, you can take yourself through a wee 5-step process as well. So it's 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can feel with your hands, 3 things that you can listen for or hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. So even something like a really strong smell, a perfume, if you've got a bottle of perfume, a really strong smell will bring you back to where you are. And your visualization is just about maybe taking yourself in your mind somewhere that you feel is safe or makes you feel safe or comfortable, and it just helps bring you back again to feeling a bit more comfy and a bit more relaxed, really.
Yeah, and that might be a session that we do in the future, looking more at the techniques that Rhea's described today. Okay, so if you know you've got hard times ahead, it could be moving house, you're getting changes at work, and that can be really stressful, so try and plan ahead. So if you know you're moving home, you've really, as Rhea was saying earlier, you've got to get things packed up and ready. Don't leave things to the last minute, so try and be a bit prepared. I think there was a saying, if you fail to prepare to fail. I'm sure we were told that at university a few times. So if you can, get yourself prepared for anything that's happening. Now, here we go, stress. Anybody ever been in a relationship and it's caused you stress? I'll take the Fifth Amendment on that one, I won't then, but what is needed on those kind of things is good communication. You really need to have good communication, because if you're thinking in your head something's not quite right, if you don't talk about it and get it out there with your partner, it can just lead to more problems, and you're going around with information in your head that's maybe not quite correct. So take time out to try and communicate with the person you're with. Really is important. Now, things that can stress you out as well: children and parenting, and I maybe should have in front of that grandchildren, children and parenting, because they can stress you out. Babies, when you have babies, that's a really stressful time, and it's good to talk about that, because a lot of mums think that they're failing, they're not doing everything right, but it's really a stressful time, not just for mums but dads as well. I'm not forgetting you guys either. So what Rhea was describing earlier about taking time out for yourself, if you're a new parents, really important to try and take time out for yourself. Try and do some relaxation and the breathing that Rhea was talking about as well. Now, if you've got older children, by that I mean sort of, we'll say from 11 upwards, 11 to about 15. Now, your older children, once they're fed and they're warm, they're safe, what's the best thing you can give them? It's your time. So a lot of times they're looking for, acknowledgement from you, communication from you. Spending time with your children is a great way to take your mind off of other worries. So if you're worried about your child's behaviour, you just say they're behaving in a way that you're finding difficult to manage, try and talk to someone about that. And Rhea's going to give us some information on about who you can talk to and what you can actually do.
So you can talk to your GP if you find that it's possibly something to do with their health. So if you've got any concerns to do with your child's health, obviously your GP would be your first point of call there. The school or nursery that the child attends, if they go to a nursery or a school, they will have lots of information and advice, or be able to signpost to other places that could give you some help and support as well. And some schools have workers that can do quite close work with families, with children in school and out of school as well. So it's worthwhile finding out if there's other people in the school apart from teachers that could potentially support you with things as well. Your local community could potentially have various sources of support. So it could be a support group of some kind. If there's something in particular that you want to find out about, you can let us know. So based on the area that you live in, we can find out what's on locally. We can signpost you to your local community centre or communities officer, who will know all about the groups and things that go on in the local area that you could be looking into. So it could be something in particular. We were talking earlier on about an ADHD support group that we know exists. So there might be a very specific thing that you're looking for support with, or it might just be general information to do with your child's health or their behaviour or their well-being in general as well. So there are different people out there that can help. So if you're not sure who to go to, if you can just get in touch with us and we can have a chat with you about that and see what the best option would be.
Okay. Just going back to the babies again, how it can be quite stressful having a baby. Postnatal depression, that affects around 1 in 10 mums. It can be treated and most mums recover well. So remember that with all the changes and the pressures, just remember that there is help out there as well if you're suffering from postnatal depression. Okay, the next thing we'll go on to is looking at anxiety, panic attacks and depression. Living with stress and anxiety all the time, it can really affect your health, as we said earlier. Anxiety, a little worry will keep you safe, but constant worry isn't normal, so you do need to ask for help. Panic attacks might be that you've got a pounding heart and you find it difficult to breathe, you've got feelings of dread, you could be then having a panic attack, and they can be really, really frightening, so it's important to get help about them. I was going to ask Rhea to give us some information about coping techniques at this time, but Rhea's already gone over them. So the coping techniques that Rhea mentioned earlier would address some of these issues. But again, if they're constant and going on all the time, please get in touch and we'll try and signpost you to someone that can do it. Now, Rhea's also got information at the end for help for anxiety, panic attacks and depression. So she's going to give us a lot of information at the end. So I'll kind of just go over this one and go on to the next thing. It could be stress and anxiety is caused by issues that are from the past. Might be that were you hit as a child, you maybe find yourself stuck in a violent relationship as an adult, were you abused, did you get bullied at school, or you could be bullied at work. It's sometimes obvious how bad experience in the past can make life difficult right now, but that connection, it isn't always easy for us to make. So if you have got issues and you think they're maybe related to the past, again, get in touch with us and we'll try and signpost you to someone else. So all the things we've mentioned earlier, it's really important to take action now. So if there's anybody out there and you're watching what Rhea and I are talking about today, please, if you do feel any signs of stress, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, get in touch. I was just saying earlier, talking about if you've got any problems, if we had a tin and there was a few problems in this tin and we kept filling the tin up with problems and our brain's filling up with problems, what would happen if I shook this tin? All the problems get mishmashed out, and if I go to open that, whoosh, there's all the problems will come running out at once and gushing out all over the place. That's why we say if you've got a problem, try and deal with it at the time. Don't let your problems build up to be, lots and lots of different problems, because when you've got one problem, it leads to another and another. So it's really important to deal with them at the time. And now's the time that I think I'm going to hand you over to Rhea. She's got all the information and contacts for all different organisations that you out there can maybe get in touch with.
I think what I'll say as well is just when Alison's talking about not letting problems build up, one of the things that you could try to do is break something down into kind of bite-sized chunks, so don't feel like you have to deal with the whole thing all at once. Break it down, deal with a little bit of it at a time. The other thing you could do is prioritise as well. So if you have let things build up a bit and you've got a few things going on at any given time, prioritise. Think about what you can cope with dealing with at that point in time, or what's important enough that it needs dealt with at that point in time, and what could you kind of put on the back burner for later. So have a think about what should be dealt with at that point in time and what you can manage, rather than just burying your head in the sand and trying to forget about everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to post some useful website links and some phone numbers in the comments on the video. So I'll do that, but what we've done is we've just put a few onto paper that we can show you at the moment. So we've got some phone numbers. So the chances are you'll have heard of these already. So we've got the phone number for Citizens Advice there, if anybody feels that they want that one. So Citizens Advice can offer, it's a personal one-to-one type of support they can offer, they can offer advice on things like housing, on debt, on employment, any sort of consumer issues that you might have that could potentially cause worry or anxiety or stress, or you feel like things have built up and it's just too much for you to deal with on your own. Give them a phone and have a chat. So the line is open from Monday to Friday, 9 o'clock until 5 o'clock. You can call this number. We've also got NHS 24, which I'm sure you'll all be aware of. So it's just 111 for that one. So again, anything sort of mental health related, poor well-being, anything health-wise, you can have a look at their website as well, which we'll post up. And I wrote down the time. I thought this was a 24-hour number, and it isn't. It's actually 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. that you can call this number, apparently. I actually thought that you could call it any time. And then you've got the Samaritans. You'll have heard of them, I'm sure. And again, it's a listening service, so there's no judgment at all if you need to talk to someone, and they are there 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, so anytime, any day, you can call that number and get support from them. We've got Breathing Space, so you can call Breathing Space Monday to Thursday, 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. and at the weekend, so Friday from 6 p.m. until Monday 6 a.m. Okay, so that's the times that you can call this number, and that's a free number. They can help anyone who is over the age of 16. It's a free service, it's confidential, so anything to do with anxiety, depression, low mood, anything like that at all, you can speak to them. So it's a safe, supportive space that they're offering, so that you can have a conversation about those things that are going on for you. Put that there. And then we've got a couple of websites here. So I found this one which I thought was really good. I'm going to put the link up. So it's called Clear Your Head. So it's loads of practical things that they give you, loads of practical tips and advice. So it's things like how to create a routine for yourself, how to find things that you enjoy doing, how to make sure that you stay connected to people so that you're not socially isolated, keeping on the move and keeping active. So a lot of the things that we've mentioned today, you'll find tips and things to do with those on this website. It's a really good website to navigate through as well. It's really easy to find things, really easy to read. So I'll put the link up for that as well. And then we've got the website for Mind. That's the web link there. I don't know if you've heard of Mind. It's really, really good. There's loads of stuff on this website. It's probably, I don't know if you've been on, it's one of my favourite websites to go on if it's anything to do with mental well-being or mental health. There's everything that you could want on this website. Loads of stuff about COVID as well. So while they've got all their usual information about mental health and well-being, they've also got a whole other section on how to deal with all the same stuff but during COVID, because that would mean that things have changed slightly, and people might think that they can't get the same type of support or they can't access the same things. So they offer, there's an online community, you can phone their helpline, and they also have a legal line as well, so if there's any sort of legal advice that you need around your mental health condition or anything else, you can get in touch with them as well. I'm trying to think if I've got anything else to say. I think I've mentioned everything. Yeah, is that okay?
Yep. Well, I hope you've all got some information from myself and Rhea today, and as we said earlier, please do get in touch if you want further information or you want us to go over anything in greater detail, because we kind of skimmed over a lot of things just to give you an idea of the kind of things we can cover. So that's us for today, but just to give you information, we're back again next week, 11 o'clock, and we will have Vicky Carnegie from Dundee Carers with us next week. So if anyone's involved in a caring role within their community or at home, please tune in again next week and we'll give you lots of information from Vicky and myself. So thanks for tuning in today and we'll see you next week.